Are we El Gucho?
We are El Gucho. It's been a while since we last spoke like this. I did see you, was it last weekend? When was Kicks? Weekend before last?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. I've seen your beautiful face recently,
Ah, cheers.
but we haven't sat down to have any sort of long form.
We had a barbecue on a very rainy day, so
It was good.
that was great.
It's good.
Then you also came to a gig of mine
Oh yes, that
in
was
London, which was good.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
My first foray into backing vocals, and it was less scary than I thought it would be, actually. I've never sung that much before, but I think in that type of band, it's more angry, so I can just sort of... I mean, I'll probably destroy my voice, or any voice that I have, but yeah, it was good fun. Got a few things to talk about today. I mean, right now, it's, the snap election.
It is fresh in everyone's minds.
Mm.
It is May 1st, as we are recording this, to let the secret out of the bag a little bit. It's May 1st, and when did she call the snap election? A couple of weeks ago, maybe? A week or so ago?
Yeah.
Kind of came a bit out of left field, one would say. Theresa May in the past, the UK Prime Minister, had said she wasn't going to call an election at any time in the foreseeable future. She wasn't going to call one in the foreseeable future, and here she has called one. Why do you think that is?
I think we were discussing this a bit before, and obviously we've all talked to people about it. But as far as I can see, or as far as we can see, there's obviously a lot. The left is not as strong as it has been in terms of, like, the Labour Party, for instance. Like you said before, there's been a lot of infighting, so a lot of people like smearing Corbyn from the inside, sort of thing. I feel like a lot of so the US has obviously elected Donald Trump, who is definitely not left. Like, he's not a left.
Do you think so?
He's not a liberal. And obviously parts of Europe are becoming more right-wing, sort of thing. Yeah, I feel that because the next election would, if it wasn't called now, that would be in, when would that have been? Like the natural course of election.
2020, because we elected the Liberal Democrat Conservative coalition in 2010. Then Cameron won a Conservative majority outright in 2015. And then he resigned, and so Theresa May took his place. So theoretically, we weren't due to have another election until 2020, with parliamentary terms being 5 years in length.
So whoever obviously wins the election will probably carry us through the whole of the Brexit negotiations. So yeah, I feel like they're trying. Yeah, I mean,
it's an important one.
Yeah, and I hate the fact that they're using the words strong and.
Strong, stable leadership is the buzzword of Theresa May. Yeah. I'd like to know how many times she's said that phrase. It's astounding. In every single speech, multiple times in the speech, she will say that we need strong, stable leadership, which of course is to contrast herself to Jeremy Corbyn, who many people think is not a strong leader, partly due to the dissension and infighting within the Labour Party. And it depends what you need in a leader. We were speaking about this a little while ago, in that while Jeremy Corbyn doesn't seem to hold sway over many of his MPs, the people who sort of work for him, he has a very big level of support with the masses, with the actual members of the Labour Party. They've elected him twice to the position of leader. No one's going to oust him using that sort of, if they take it to a vote within the membership of the Labour Party. So it's sort of a weird sort of paradox where he has the support of the people but not of his party. And is that strong, stable leadership? Perhaps not. But
I think a lot of people, I think the country has been, what people like about politicians is we've got these big historical figures like, Margaret Thatcher, whether you're like, it depends to what generation or what people you're talking to. Winston Churchill, all these guys that are seen as like strong British leaders. So I think in a way a lot of people want that type of thing. They want to go and just have a cheeky little war in the Falklands, just for the bants. It's like, nah.
I'd rather not have a war, thanks.
Yeah, I think it depends what sort of generation you're talking to, but for me personally, I don't see someone who is trying to back... I don't see military intervention as strength, or that's not really what attracts me in terms of a leader. So I know that for some people they want...
Some people see that as a positive, and you can't be a strong leader if you're not willing to exercise that militarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you in that I would rather not have wars, if at all possible.
Defo.
Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by the Labour Party.
It honestly is not, but if you are listening, Labour Party, that'd be nice.
And you want to
chuck a few pennies our way, bobs. I wouldn't say no.
Yeah, I think we're not really going to go into obviously policies of different people or stuff. It's not necessarily a podcast that is based in politics. We're just discussing why we think it's come about, and so I think it's more Conservatives, as we've said, they're trying to take
advantage.
While the left is weak, trying to win the election and win the majority. So, which I mean is pretty smart by them, because there hasn't been a lot of time for certain other parties to mobilise and get to the people, which is the important part about voting. There's not really that long to go. It's in June.
June.
So yeah, a month now.
Oh god, it's May, innit? Oh my days. It really isn't that long at all.
Yeah, and if it was only announced a couple of weeks ago, they've literally given less than 2 months to just be like, okay, everyone make up your mind what you want for the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people are going to be scared into voting Conservative, because they'll be like, okay, well...
we need strong leadership through these Brexit negotiations.
May's going to tell them to do one. You either give us the deals, or you do one. Which, probably not the best.
No, probably not the best. I think the Labour Party, and indeed most of the other parties, have been prepared for this snap election for a while, partly because they were expecting, or some people at least were expecting, a general election to be called when Cameron resigned, because although we don't have the presidential system whereby we directly elect the actual leader, so, we're not voting for Theresa May or David Cameron, as some people sometimes forget that we do. We do representative democracy. So some people said that we should have had a general election when Cameron resigned, because May is essentially an unelected leader.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, yes.
Yeah, I mean, when it was announced, I was thinking, this is what should have happened. When Cameron stepped down. So admittedly, I was like, it feels like it was the right thing to do back then, but then automatically that's why I was a bit like,
bit skeptical.
Conservatives doing the right thing. There's definitely more to this than that. I was instantly there's definitely a reason why they're doing it now. There's definitely a strategy behind it. So there we go.
Who do you think is going to win the election? Do you think it is going to be... Is it going to be a landslide, Conservatives? Or... Because I'm seeing a lot of people posting online. Again, I live in an echo chamber. I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
But I am seeing a lot of support for tactical voting. There was even a piece about it in the Evening Standard, which I read because I commute to London. But there was a piece... Was it the Evening Standard? I can't even remember what paper it was in now. It might have been something else, about tactical voting and the rise of tactical voting, and which is encouraging, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Conservatives are still going to remain. I
almost feel like it's weird, isn't it? Because tactical voting makes sense, and although I don't think that it's probably the most democratic process. Well, our voting system I don't think is either.
No.
There's a reason why we're now having to draw up tables or Excel spreadsheets on who you need to vote for to get out a certain party. It's not like you can just vote for who you want to, which in theory you should just vote for who you want to be in power. But of course that's not how it's going to work. But it's a bit weird, isn't it? Because it's like you can vote for who is in theory the opposition to your local... So my local area, it's strongly Conservatives. So the the nearest, or the party with the second most amount of votes is the Lib Dems. And it's almost like, do I then vote for them and just assume that everyone else is doing the same with tactical voting? Or do people actually this time think, oh, maybe I'm going to just do what I want and vote Labour? You know, it's hard to tell what to do when you can't talk to everyone in the area, sort of thing.
It'd be nice if the voting system worked and you didn't have to think in these sort of double bluff like scenarios within your own head. But
because I also find you also get a lot of sort of stuff through the post or online or in the news where they always go into the whole thing of like, if you vote for this person, it's wasted because your vote only really matters to win the individual seat of the area that you're voting in. So it's not like it has any power. It's weird, isn't it? Like, it doesn't have any power past that. So if you haven't done anything to win that seat, if you put it towards a party that you know is nowhere near making a change, then in a way it's wasting it. So yeah,
I do think we need to completely change the way we vote. We did have some sort of referendum about the alternative voting system a while back. I think that was one of the Lib Dems pledges, but I don't think I was old enough to vote at that point, so I didn't get a say in it. It's just so, like, in some seats you can win the seat and have 30% of the popular vote, because the rest of it is divided amongst loads of other parts. Maybe not 30%, 40%, which is ridiculous that the majority of people don't want you, and then yet you're the winner. I mean, this could go into a whole conversation about alternative voting systems, but we do it in the European elections. We rank our candidates by preference. So you'll say, I want this guy first, this guy second, this guy third. I don't want that guy at all. And so it encourages you to vote for the smaller parties. Because if you vote for the Monster Raving Loony Party and they don't get in, it then goes to your second place votes, and then they do it all again. And then if that doesn't win, it goes to your third place. And it's just a much better way.
Yeah, I find the Monster Raving Loony Party has become I don't know, it's so not attached to a younger generation of people. I think it was more of a Mickey take maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's a bit
where people were oh well, we'll just vote for this or whatever. And now there's I just don't find it funny anymore.
That is literally a wasted vote.
yeah, exactly. But it's I think it's a parody of how the voting system works, but I think, I just don't find that funny.
It's too real. Some of their policies have come in, I think. I think they were the first ones to campaign for the voting age to be reduced to 18?
16?
I think that was them. Do you vote at 16?
No, I think it's 18. But I think it's they want it reduced to 16. Which I guess, in theory... Well, I don't know. I suppose you go to university at 18, so. But I don't know.
You do most of your other adult activities like drinking and.
Yeah, at 18.
At 18
in the UK, anyway.
Yeah. Haha, America. Where's your freedom now?
Yeah. So anyway, that's politics.
That is politics.
That's politics done.
That was politics corner. Well
done. So. Big sporting event has happened recently.
Yes.
Literally 2 nights ago.
Yeah, Saturday night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Anthony Joshua punched a guy several times.
He did. He did. He also got punched several times.
Yeah. Was he retaining the belt?
Boxing is very confusing. There are so many titles, and I think he was. I think he retained...
World Heavyweight
Probably
champion?
should have Googled this.
Yeah,
but he's someone's. He's the IBF and WBO World Boxing Heavyweight.
Yeah, I don't
champion.
understand how you've got so many different belts for separate things.
It's very confusing.
I suppose in football you've got different cups, league. So I
suppose the thing about football is that there isn't 2 parallel Premier Leagues in the UK. I suppose there is if you think about international leagues, and they go, well, who's the real best club in the world or whatever. But yeah, Anthony Joshua, born in Watford, Nigerian parents. Olympic gold medalist.
Yeah, I think I remember that.
2012.
Yep.
Hometown boy. Undefeated at the professional level.
What's he now? 19-0.
19-0.
So I think I don't know
by knockout as well.
Yeah. And obviously Klitschko. I mean, the thing is, he's 41 years old now. I mean, still a beast. But I mean, how old is Joshua now?
27.
It's quite a big age gap there.
Yeah, 41-year-old Klitschko.
Bloody hell.
Still go at 41 though. I hope.
Yeah, 11 rounds with a 28-year-old that's probably at like, just peaking or
physical,
approaching his peak. It's pretty mental. But fair enough, Yeah, I mean, we were talking about the other day how I don't see anyone on my Facebook or anything like that post about boxing, and then until this has come up, and then now everyone's all like patriotic about it.
And everyone knows they're boxing, and
yeah,
understands how boxing works.
To be honest, I can't claim to know a great deal about it. I used to be into it a bit more, but more recently I haven't been up to date with it. But yeah, so you say his mum immigrated from Nigeria?
Yeah, she's Nigerian, and his dad is half Nigerian, half Irish.
So basically, yay for immigration.
I think it's a people always Great Britain and all that, but
it's like Cheers. A
lot of sports people are immigrants. There's like Mo Farah, Somali, and Anthony Joshua. Although he didn't immigrate personally, Anthony Joshua, like his parents did. And
that's only like one generation then of him being British. Like his parents aren't.
He's also a great story about like the reformation of criminals. I can't remember what he got done for. Like a massive amount of possession of weed, I think, which normally carries like a 14-year sentence, because I think he had enough to, like, with intent to supply, I think was what they charged him with.
Oh, right, okay.
And he ended up doing like some community service. I think partly because he of his boxing, like GB boxing, was able to get him out of a longer sentence. And now he's been able to flourish. And
was that relatively close to the Olympics?
Let me have a look. I can't quite remember.
So I mean, that on one hand that's a good thing, but also on the other hand, people who don't have that, like who are not incredible athletes, it's like, well, you're buggered.
March 2011.
You're going to jail.
2011, he was pulled over by the police for speeding. He was found with 8 ounces of herbal cannabis hidden in a sports bag. He was charged with possession with intent to supply of a Class B drug, an offence that carries a maximum sentence of 14 years. He was suspended from GB boxing and was sentenced to a 12-month community order and 100 hours of unpaid work after pleading guilty. And less than a year later, he won an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
Well, just over a year later, rather. He did win that in kind of contentious circumstances. I think it was like a split decision that he won it on. So it wasn't quite the glorious crowning achievement that everyone thought it was going to be. But
good old Olympics. Definitely not dodgy at all.
No. Do you have any sort of problem with boxing as a sport? Like, do you think people should be allowed to punch each other in the head for money? Is that fine with you? Does that sit fine with you? Because I know some people have a real problem with it and call it barbaric.
Yeah, I mean, I probably went through a phase of thinking that it's not good at all. Just completely disagree with it. But at the same time, I think in a way, if people were doing that in a professional environment, it's better than if it wasn't legal, whatever, because then there wouldn't be any
rules and regulations around
exactly,
it.
Yeah. I think it's a lot safer now than it has ever been, obviously. But yeah, I mean, what sort of negatives can you draw from it? I mean, it's a violent sport, I suppose. But
all of the great boxers, Muhammad Ali has Parkinson's. I don't know if that's directly related to his. Well, he's dead now, isn't he? He did die, didn't he? But he had Parkinson's for a long time. I'd imagine that's related to his multiple punches to the head.
Yeah.
A lot of boxers tend to have memory loss and dementia because of the massive blows to the head.
Yeah, it's just head trauma, isn't it?
Head trauma, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could say the same about a lot of sort of athletic sports. Footballers, I mean, it's now being looked into about headers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That players are suffering brain damage from heading the ball, which is obviously
a fundamental part of the game.
Yeah, yeah. And tackles, anything like this, they can all lead to injury. And later on in life, players' legs have suffered damage from that as well. So I think it's a bit of a tricky one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because that's going to be across all sports. So I think you'd be taking the teeth out of a lot of different types of entertainment if you were to make it like extra safe and ruled out certain aspects of the game, particularly in football. Or in boxing, obviously the gloves are now a certain weight, and they have to be inspected so that it's as safe as it can be, sort of thing.
Because I don't know how recent it was, but they did take out the use of head guards in amateur boxing. If you remember, they used to all wear the head guards and stuff.
Yeah.
But they took those out because they said it encouraged people to take more blows to the head because they didn't actually feel it as much.
Yeah.
And that sort of caused more brain injuries. So I think it's probably as safe as it. I don't know how you can make it any safer. You're punching people in the head. I don't know.
At the end of the day, there's damage being done, and unless you're going to stop hitting each other, then there's always going to be that there.
And it's so big now, you can't stop boxing.
And MMA as well. That's gotten way bigger recently.
Yeah.
And I suppose, I think good things you can draw from it as well is that people will see it more as a professional sport, and if you're going to go into that, you then are not allowed to. You can't just sort of start fights outside of the sport, because that is how you get banned. So I guess if people want to do it professionally, then obviously they have to do it. It stays there, sort of thing. But then that's not to say that kids watching are going to not get in fights in the playground. But that's always going to happen. So that's probably about as much as I know about boxing. So
yeah.
Cheers.
So I've been thinking a lot recently about the difference between art and artists, and whether or not I make a distinction, or you make it, or people make a distinction. What sort of brought this to my mind is, as you might know, I'm quite a fan of wrestling, professional wrestling, and you might remember the story of a wrestler called Chris Benoit, who, in the final moments of his life, murdered his wife and son, and then killed himself. Yeah. And it was front page news. Again, it's kind of related to that boxing we were talking about earlier. People think it had a lot to do with his brain. He was quite a user of headbutts in his wrestling, and that might have contributed to his outburst. No one really knows exactly what happened. It might have been roid rage, or that's besides the point. But for a long time, I struggled with ever watching any of his old matches.
Yeah,
because all I could see when I watched them was a man who would eventually go on to kill his wife and son. And wrestling is a very vicious and violent sport, and people are fighting and angry and aggressive, and he was quite a vicious wrestler. And seeing him lay into his opponents and put them through agonizing pain, and then knowing what he would go on to do was really it really troubled me for a very, very long time.
It's quite unsettling, isn't it?
It really was quite unsettling. But after a long time of not watching him, he sort of somehow creeped back into the wrestling I'm watching, and I kind of have less of a problem with it now. I don't know whether it's just the passage of time. The incident itself happened in 2007, so it's been 10 years now. So maybe it's just the passage of time that's helped. And of course, the recent Jimmy Savile allegations, and they're not allegations. He did what he did. I shouldn't say allegations. But the revelation about that and other high-profile public figures of the 70s.
Yeah.
Which has obviously soured people on them.
Yeah. And the gent from Lost Prophets.
And the bloke from Lost Prophets.
Can't remember his name.
Ian Watkins.
Yeah.
I can't listen to Lost Prophets anymore. I just actively skip every time they come on shuffle. I haven't gone out of my way to listen to them in a very long time. And should we be separating the art from the artist? Or should we treat the art on its own merits? Or should we always consider the role that the artist plays? What are your thoughts and views?
I think it's a bit of a hard one, isn't it? Because, I wasn't really ever into Lost Prophets or I'm not young enough to have watched Jimmy Savile on TV, or I haven't been into wrestling sort of thing. But I think you need to determine. I think some people, like the Jimmy Savile thing, is just that's unforgivable sort of thing. Like you can't.
Yeah, definitely.
That then, especially in the field of work that he was in, I think you'd struggle to watch. Like
it colours everything he ever did, didn't it? Like him visiting hospitals and doing kids' daytime programming. I suppose that's why people have more of a repulsion to that than they might otherwise.
Whereas I think people, that's not my opinion, but if you're listening to Lost Prophets or whatever, you could then argue that it's more unrelated to a certain extent. But I think if you take it on a less serious sort of route and say that maybe an artist that you listen to or you enjoy what they create or something like that, they're maybe like, I don't know, a racist or they have certain political views, then it depends how much you want to, like how much do you disagree with them as a person and how much does it affect you listening to their work or enjoying their art or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's very different as well if they're still alive, I think, and if you're like financially still giving them personally money.
Yeah.
Because then you're funding their opinion essentially. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends if they're actively promoting something that they believe in. So if it's like a political campaign and they're on board with it and they're constantly supporting it and you're giving them money, then you could argue that you're almost funding that campaign. But then it depends, obviously, sometimes you might not follow these people on their social media accounts or you might not follow them personally, but you just listen to their music. So
yeah, and you might not even know what opinions they hold.
I mean, I'm sure I don't know everyone that I am into in terms of music or their YouTube content or stuff like that. The majority of people, I won't know their political views or their racial, social views and stuff like that. There's probably a lot of bad people out there but you just don't know yet.
I was going to say, yeah, they're probably those people who you want to avoid. They're probably not public about their opinions. They probably realise that the views that they hold are less popular, and even then, many artists just don't like to get political because they don't want to offend a portion of their fan base anyway. So they want to keep the peace, as it were.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very cynical way to look at it, but you could always think of it as they haven't expressed their views yet. Like what they talk about in a pub with their mates is going to be very different to what they put out
on their public social media or whatever.
Yeah, it's a hard one, obviously.
I'm sure I think I like more examples of. I'm sure there are some writers with some atrocious opinions.
I think there was an artist that I quite like called Jill Scott, and I think she's expressed that she doesn't like white people. So I find that kind of funny. But then again, I think that's almost
more acceptable.
Yeah, in a weird way. It's like, I don't like white people ever.
White people are bad, I agree.
I hate myself. If I were you, I'd hate me too.
Yeah. We have done some deplorable things in our time as a race.
I mean, obviously, I don't support racism of any kind. I think some people, it's all their experience, really. And I think...
I was going to say, we come at this as two white men, so probably not the victims or the people who experience any kind of prejudice from artists that we listen to. Your example there was a very, very rare case.
Yeah.
It'd be very different, I suppose, if, a popular musician was a sexist, and if you were a woman, would you continue to listen to their music, and, why or what,
But I think the music industry in particular, and certain artistic industries, support certain less moral opinions. So the music industry is obviously littered with sexism all over it. And I think they almost use it to market stuff. So you're buying into that as a listener or as someone who is consuming that media.
Yeah, I mean, music videos for the longest time were just generally quite sexist things, treating women as purely objects and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching some stuff from the 90s or whatever last night, and it's just like almost every video you're seeing is just women dancing wearing almost nothing. And it's just like, okay, yeah. mean, it's good that it's moved on, but slightly, but it's still definitely a big part of it. And I think the other thing to bear in mind is the artists that you listen to. I think a lot of great art comes from really bad places, if you see what I
mean. Yeah.
So their experiences have all led to what they're creating. Them doing bad things or stuff like that is not necessarily going to... I don't know. I mean, that's still part of their experience of what they've lived through. So I think if they've had bad stuff happen to them, but they turn it into...
positive.
Yeah, like exceptional music or, writing or stuff like that, then I think that can be a really, really good thing. I don't know how you turn you doing bad into, like, an art form. I guess it's subjective.
Depends how good the art is, I suppose, as to whether you're willing to forget about whether or not the person has unfavourable opinions.
Yeah.
It's also probably quite difficult, as you said earlier, to like be a good consumer in that way. It's impossible to know the opinions and whatever of everyone who you listen to and support and stuff. You have to remember that like you yourself are not a perfect person, I suppose. Yeah. Like I'm sure many people would think me immoral for eating meat and dairy and all stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I'm not doing anything about that right now. I recognise it's bad and I should not do it, but it's getting a bit off topic. I don't know.
Does that mean all vegans should not listen to your podcast?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it basically is that, isn't it? Like, should people, or, people who don't eat meat or anything like that, partake in that sort of stuff, should they just not support something that you're doing? It's quite hard, isn't it? Because you almost want to, I can see from that point of view, you might want to say, well, I'm not going to support that because I want to be influenced by people who have the same mindset as me or listen to that sort of stuff. But I think you're going to narrow your options a lot.
Massively.
If you only go along with that sort of stuff. So, we just took a quick break.
Some bevies.
Have some get the bevs in. Well, I just had some water because I'm feeling very ill. So probably sound very nasally and annoying. Cheers.
Nah.
But I was thinking about the other day. So we're both 20, 21, sort of. I think
I'm indeed 21.
You're 21. Okay, I'm also 21. Good. We're thinking about if you don't do something that you want to do, you could be working the next 30 to 40 years of your life.
Yeah, what is retirement age now? 67?
What?
67. I'm going to be working until 2062. 2062. No. Yeah. Born in 1995.
Yeah.
That'd be 67. I'm going to be working until 2062. Me.
Oh, that is
2062.
That's scary.
What's going on 26
You might as well
years
get your calendar out and start counting down the days now. I mean, if you think about that, so that's another, 47 years or something like that for you? 46 years for you?
Yeah.
So that is your lifetime doubled.
And a bit more.
So,
Jesus.
Yeah. So, let that sink in for a minute. I mean, that's my issue with like the current way that people are living their lives. Like this idea that you're working your whole life. You get married, have kids, all that sort of crap.
All that jazz.
Yeah. I mean, I just don't want to do that with my life, to be completely honest with you. Do what you love.
It's properly terrifying, Properly terrifying.
Mm.
I can't even remember when I was like 5. My memory's awful. And I have to do this and I'll be dead.
Yeah. I mean, by the time you retire, then you're not physically able to do what you want.
No.
Not as much as you were when you were younger. And probably not mentally able. I don't know. I think your mind deteriorates at a slower rate. But regardless, like your best years
right now.
Yeah. Just gonna be working away. and then it's gone, and then you're old, and then you die.
It just makes me very sad. It is quite sad, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember, like, I don't like to think about this too much because it really hurts my head. It makes me feel sad. It's like, what alternative is there, really?
Well, I think we probably live in a time now where you've got probably the most tools than ever to make a living without having a lot of money, in a weird way. I mean, it's probably harder to start up a business now. It's definitely harder to buy a house.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and attain stuff like that, yeah. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was more money to that, more people investing in stuff. You know, just from in the music industry, so obviously one that I know more than any other industry, personally. Big like record labels would put more money into bands that hadn't proved as much, whereas now you literally have to have it black and white. I have this many people who are listening to it now. I've made this much progress. This is what I've done. This is what I want to do. You have to almost have a business plan for yourself. You need to be more business savvy nowadays, I think. But I think if you are, you can definitely, you know, people are making livings off of Instagram and stuff like that. So if you're creative,
there's money to be made.
Yeah, it's more accessible, I think.
It's definitely easier to break in to like all these industries now. Like it's easier to become a musician. You can just sort of make stuff in your bedroom using like editing software you buy online and like stuff like that. Whereas before you'd need access to like a studio, like with the old technologies, like cutting tape and stitching tape together in order to like make records that way. Like it's more accessible to get into these industries, but it might be harder to make. I don't know if it is harder to make a living necessarily. Or to be like a star. I
think in a way, the angle that I go about it, where I play for other people, I'm a musician who plays in other artists' bands, or just does, you know, the gigs for money or whatever, stuff like that. I don't really write my music, but definitely back into there, like again, 20 years ago, or there was a big
20 years ago in the 90s.
Yeah, Jesus. Or even after that and before. For a while, before, as you say, recording software is readily available for everyone. The hardware is available for everyone. You know, everyone can have their home studio now. So, I think there was a time when there would be session musicians that would be going from studio to studio and recording music, getting paid for it, and that would be their living. Whereas now there was a massive drop off when everyone could then get that in their houses. They then don't have to, you know, because time was money, so you'd employ the best guys so you could get it done quickly because you're hiring out the studio.
Yeah.
So if you've got good musicians come in play, they're going to get it done pretty quickly because they're on the circuit. Whereas nowadays you can just, you know, you can get your mate to come in and do it. Who cares if it takes you a whole day? Like, you're not paying for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
which is good. Which is good for the person making the music, I guess. But like, problematic for you, I suppose. Like, if you want to make a career as a session musician or whatever, sort of makes it harder to be more competitive. I don't know.
Yeah, even in you know, managers, producers, these sort of roles have been less important in a lot of different fields in sort of in the artistic community. Because people can find out more, they can learn more on the internet now.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a very romantic idea. Back then, you know, when people get signed, or you know, you get a TV show, you'd be hosting a TV show or something like that, you know, or you'd be on radio, you'd have your own radio station, or hosting it or whatever. Because now everyone can. I mean, look at us, we're doing a podcast.
Exactly. Like who the hell are we? Yeah. And here, like, and previously we'd have to like be in a radio studio. Yeah. We'd have to like hire it out, and we'd have to know that it would make money. And whereas we can do it here functionally for free. All I have to do is like pay for a website and buy a microphone and stuff, like, which compared to the cost of hiring out a recording studio every week or what have you is peanuts. Really.
I mean, or getting someone who, because you know, previously we might not have known how to use any of this equipment. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to be the best audio quality available.
No,
but it's still functionally it works.
It's not offensive to the ears. At least I hope.
I don't know where this topic started. I think we just started at doing what you enjoy.
Yeah, I don't know quite how we ended it.
Yeah, but I've quite enjoyed it.
Because when I tend to speak with people for any length of time about, do what you enjoy, what it comes back to is, I don't know what I enjoy.
Yeah.
Are they going to pay me for what I enjoy? And if they're not, it's because capitalism is a broken system. And then I tend to sound like a communist.
Yeah, commie.
Which I'm not. I just find
communist
memes very entertaining.
Yep. Sometimes it's too real.
It is.
I'm just I laugh at it, but I'm like, ha ha ha, this is a real problem.
Those are the best kind of jokes where you're like, oh, that's so true. I want to laugh and cry simultaneously.
Yeah, I think so essentially today, if you are I think it's also harder to be creative though in the first place. So if you are seeing these Instagram accounts or these YouTube accounts or people on social media that are making a living off of it, it is attainable. People are doing it.
Yeah.
But you've got to have something that they haven't got, essentially. I think that's quite hard because there's now an abundance of ideas and
there's so much out there. It is difficult to be unique, I guess.
Yeah.
And if you're looking out there trying to find something to be unique about, you're likely to be influenced by something else, and then your ideas sort of get tainted with whatever the general zeitgeist of the moment is, and so difficult to stand out.
But, I mean, I guess people do make a living off of just copying other videos, or copying other music, all that sort of stuff. But you've got to be okay with the idea that you're not being that creative, and you're just making a living out of it.
And whoever's there to see you is not there for you, necessarily.
But then again, I suppose some people start off doing it like that, and then from there, they'll discover what they are all about and what they like and don't like about that. So
yeah, it does take a while to find your sort of, I don't know, creative personality, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't really know what this is yet. This is still
I'm
kind
sure
of...
in 15 episodes we might know.
We might get there. We might get a bit closer. Because it's all sort of a bit ad hoc.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole theme of this has started from you wanting a creative outlet.
I mean, people might disagree and say that just chatting for an hour is not a creative outlet. But, I mean, I find it enjoyable. So...
So, sue me.
Yeah, I mean, I like talking about big ideas for, long periods of time. So I do want to move it more into the journalistic side of things. I keep mentioning this, but I'm just terrified of interviewing people. I did go up to London the other day with the intention of asking people about how they felt about London in general. It wasn't that long after the Westminster attack. I was like, right, I'm going to go up there, I'm going to speak to people, I'm going to ask them, do they feel safe in London, and and why not, and stuff. I'm just terrified of speaking to people.
It's okay,
I need to get over that. I need to
do that at some point. We'll both go up there with mics and be all go stand outside the BBC.
Yeah. I'm just I need to get over it. I don't know how. I don't want to be a nuisance to people. I'm standing there that's why this has got a ribbon on it. Because I wrap that around my head, let it dangle down, and I use this to shove in people's faces. But I just got to recording ambient sound, and I was like, oh, I'm scared, and ran away. I need to get over that. It's not been a worse. You're not
gonna get nowhere in this industry with that.
I know. Just need to do it.
Yeah, let me get in there. So I think that's what I think. It is possible. We can all do this stuff. I mean, it's hard to start your own business or start your own sort of creative thing if you're working full time. I think especially. But yeah, I mean, some people are literally up hours before they're working, and then hours afterwards, to make it their dream more of a reality and sort of bring it closer to where they've got a point where they can then transition from their full-time job to whatever it is they're doing. I mean, see from what you're doing, and just in the process of I guess production, or I think that's sort of more where you lean, more production and journalism, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm not out here making portraits or sculpting or
I could see you more kind of behind the scenes, like that sort of thing. Do you think like qualifications in that are extremely relevant?
I think the qualifications are more relevant for behind the scenes than in front of the camera necessarily.
Yeah.
Particularly for like if you were to work in radio or whatever, like it's good to have an understanding of like how the radio desk works, and if you want to be a camera operator, like how the camera works. But there aren't any sort of traditional qualifications that cover that necessarily. Yeah. Like there are more like vocational qualifications that like colleges and stuff are offering around like, you know, broadcast production. I mean, I'm not familiar with these necessarily, but like it's not like any A-levels or whatever are going to help you with that. They're certainly more relevant than in front of the camera, because if you need to be in front of the camera, it's just, are you good at your job, really?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, you could argue that like filmmaking or like some sort of qualifications with that would probably help you with that, but I think degrees are expensive. Education is very expensive at this point where you want to go into one of these sort of industries. So I think, you know, like people are doing off their YouTube channels, then going into doing films and stuff like that, and producing films and series and stuff like that. So I think it's definitely attainable. You've just got to show that you can do it, as well as this person who is qualified from a university or something like that.
Because really, that's all a qualification does, is just say this person can do this thing.
Yeah.
So if you've done it in real life, I'd imagine they care slightly less about your on-paper qualifications.
Yeah.
Because really, what matters is can you do the thing, not do you have a piece of paper to prove you can do the thing.
Yeah. So. Qualifications are weird.
Yeah. But you're still trying to get yours, aren't you? So.
Yep, it's true. It is true. Yeah, at some point.
Why is that?
Why is what?
Why do you feel you definitely need it now? Because I remember there was a period where you're like, I won't bother. But
I think it was just advice given to me from one of the guys higher up in the uni. And he sort of said later on in life you might feel that if you want to do teaching or stuff like that.
Right, okay.
So being a music teacher or guitar teacher or something like that, it shows a wider breadth of study than the current grade that I had. So I think for the next month and a half of work, probably for the best. I mean, you know, month and a half isn't that much long with my time just to study and write an essay or whatever. So I guess in the long run, yes, the qualification probably matters, but it's not like, you know, I didn't work to get a first, or, you know, I think music is quite a hard one because people, well, most of the time, if it's not to do with teaching, most of the time people are not gonna, you know, if you're auditioning for a band or, you know, you're going to play in a band doing a cruise or whatever, they're not going to ask you for your grade on your degree. You see what I mean? They're going to ask you to come and play or to see you play and see you understand how certain stuff works, and your professionalism is important as well. So in the music industry, no one asks for that sort of thing.
It's not like, ask for your CV with your
exactly
your GCSEs
and your
and levels.
Yeah, and your CV is more about who you've played with, or what, or where you've played, or sort of stuff like that. It's like an art degree. Like if you've got a piece of paper that says you can paint, but your paintings are terrible.
Like, or does it really
that's the
matter?
Thing as well, people can get through these degrees. Yeah, there's certain ways to do it where you don't need to have the skills that are required in the real world, but you've got a first, sort of thing. So on paper, yeah, you're a fantastic musician. Well done. You went to a uni and you did some tests and stuff like that. But when you leave, are you reliable? Are you capable of doing the job that is needed from that certain person?
I was gonna say, how does your grading work necessarily? Like, what weighting is like the live performance aspect, and then what percentage is like the written essays and stuff? Because like, would it be feasible for someone who's like actually quite bad at like guitar to be like really, really good at writing essays and like come out with a passable grade, or like, is it almost 50-50 in that if you're really bad at guitar, you're not going to get anywhere? Yeah,
I think the practical, so the end of term performance was about 60%,
right?
Something like that, and then the writing was 40.
Okay,
but then that was split into two as well.
Baker was wildly gesticulating and just ripped out his headphones.
God damn it! Let me just. There you go. I'm very passionate. Yeah, so essentially, if you got a not so great grade in your performance, you could probably save it with your writing. I mean, I do see the point of the writing. It is showing that you understand. You're supposed to be an expert in the question that you choose. With about 5,000 words to write about it or whatever. So I do understand that it's showing that you have the ability to learn, but then you're sort of showing the ability to teach as well. So that's why I see why it's more viable for someone who's doing teaching. And that's the thing, the education will always help. Like, there's no way that I can say that if I didn't go to the university that I went to, that I would have the same skills that I do now. And I think in that industry, in music, there's definitely a difference between those who have went to those colleges or universities and those who haven't. I think in certain ways that are like there's a certain employability, I think, from what people learn from there, but it's not crucial. Like, if it's more creative, I think if your art is that strong, then the other bits around it you'll learn those. So, a band who are doing it all themselves will just play gigs until the right people can produce it correctly and market it correctly, all that sort of stuff. But that's because they're doing it a different way, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, then people who do YouTube, if they start just with their phone camera in their bedroom, but then eventually their production value will go up because the audience is there.
Like, that is what keeps me going in these... in these days, is that phrase, memento mori. I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, I'd get that somewhere, so I can look at it every day and be reminded that I am going to die. I think it's an important thing to be reminded of, because, like, sometimes I just forget that, like, life is finite.
Yeah.
Like, stop wasting your time, Stephen.
Yeah, I think people just go through the motions. Like, they're just, oh yeah, I've got work today.
Yeah.
I'll do that, then I'll go home, I'll have my dinner, go to bed.
And it's so easy to do that. So easy. I'm not going to moan at people or, like, say they're bad people for doing that.
Yeah,
like, sometimes you do, like, live paycheck to paycheck, and, like, that's what you got to do. Like, you ain't got time to be thinking abstractly about your own life. You just got to live it. Like, and that's perfectly valid and fine, but it always comes back to, like, this... I just made a massive circle with my hands in the air, because I always struggle to put this into words. Always. Like, what I do day to day is fine, and people need me to do it, and what I do is valuable, but I feel like I need to serve a greater purpose to society.
Yep.
And, like, reminding myself that I'm going to die spurs me on to doing that.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely think you need to have that motivation behind you, or whatever phrase you want to use, or because otherwise you can just, it's so easy. I know so many people who have went into their job and the thing that they were passionate about, that then just... it went away because they weren't working on it and they're focusing too much on work, or not even focusing on their work. It's just that they just didn't have time, or I guess didn't create enough time for it, or put enough time into what they were passionate about. Because it's very easy, when you've got a full-time job or whatever, to be run down afterwards and unmotivated. But I think you've got to find that motivation somewhere to put the hours in.
What do you believe so deeply in that you'd get it tattooed on your skin? You don't have any tattoos, do you? No.
No.
Is there anything?
I thought about this for a while, actually, about tattoos, because I do enjoy... Well, I do think it's a good idea in a sort of way. I think it's much more personal. It says more about yourself on the outside. I think in like a tribal part of my brain, like, says to me that it gives your personality and your insides more representation. And it can say more about you. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, if you were to pass away or whatever, then, I mean, it's more to identify you rather than just another dead person or whatever. So I think at some point I might look into getting some tattoos, but I think I'm pretty bad at recognising symbols in my own life, or recognising, like, important things to myself.
Yeah.
So I need to really think about it. I think.
Like for the longest time, and even now, really, like I don't know if there's anything strong enough I'd have tattooed on my body, and if there is, I don't know how to make it look nice. Yeah. Like I mentioned, how Memento Mori like means a lot to me, especially at the moment. But like the only way I can think of doing that is like a skull and then a banner, and that seems a bit like contrived. The other idea I had was, again, these are just like quotes that I find reassuring, but "this too shall pass," which I find helpful because, one, it reminds you of the inevitability of death, which is a key component in my outlook of life.
Stephen's life.
But also that like the happy times will pass and the sad times will pass. Like this too shall pass. I like that. But again, I don't know how to make that look nice in a tattoo. So.
Yeah, you don't know how to make it into a symbol. Which I think a lot of people, in a way, are lacking in their lives. Like, they don't have any strong symbols or if they do have, parts of their life that are integral or a daily thing, maybe they don't recognise it as. People have like a football club or whatever, so they'll get the logo of that football club because it means a lot to them, tattooed on them or something like that. But I don't know, maybe you're into movies. Like, what are you gonna do? Tattoo a CD?
People do get like movie characters.
I guess so.
Pit scenes from that tattooed on them, but I'm also mindful not to be like caught up in tattoo trends. Like for the longest time, there was a big trend of like watercolor style tattoos, and like they look cool as hell, but like that's on your skin for like the rest of your life. Like, do you want to be caught up in this like cool hipster trend of having, this particular tattoo, or like it's got to stand the test of time, or like it doesn't? Yeah. Some people prefer to think of tattoos as like snapshots of like where I am at this point in my life. I suppose it depends on your outlook on it, really. But
so I'm almost at that thing of like it doesn't really matter the visual. Like of how cool it looks, because if it means something, like
that's what matters.
Yeah. Like literally, if you could get it written on you in what looks like a child's handwriting, sort of thing. But if it means that much to you, it's not necessarily about look, that looks like a cool tattoo. I think almost it's like, how, as horrible as it sounds, maybe how like cattle have stuff like. Burn into them, or how slaves have had tattoos. Like, I think there's something about that sort of resonates with me. That it's like, it's almost like takes that but flips it round, like sort of an anti version of that. That perhaps that the most basic of, like a number could mean a lot to someone or represent a lot.
Yeah, that's interesting. How like you'd be branded with the weird sort of power dynamics of like how if someone tattoos you without your consent, like what that means, but then if you choose to turn that around and tattoo yourself with it,
like ownership.
Yeah, the ownership of it.
I mean, I don't even know too much about that, but I think in my mind that's something that immediately I'm like, that's a cool idea. Like,
that's really in my mind. Like, I think there was a Holocaust survivor recently. Like, he had like the numbers on his forearm or whatever. That is a powerful image.
Yeah, but I think that sort of thing is obviously that's horrible of why it happened. But I think obviously they take ownership of that, as we were saying before. Like that's now been a massive part of their lives. So if there's, I think a tattoo should be, or could sort of relate to that in a way. I didn't expect us to go into tattoos. To be
neither did I. Neither of us owning tattoos or having tattoos. It's a weird diversion.
That's, I know lots of people with tattoos, but sometimes they're just like, I just got that one because it looked
cool.
For the shits and giggles. But then they've got other ones that are really meaningful. So I think it's just do what you want.
It's all personal preference. Yeah,
it's your body.
Exactly.
Quite frankly,
exactly.
I think staying away from it because you think it's like cleaner, or I just genuinely think that if this is the fleshy thing that you carry yourself around in every day in this existence, then you might as well just say something with it. Or I mean, it's as conscious as choosing what hairstyle you're going to have, I think, or what clothes you're going to wear. The more and more I think of it, probably definitely get a tattoo at some point in my lifetime. But there we go. If you've got a tattoo, send us a cheeky pic.
That would be good.
And hashtag we're going to die.
As we say in my brain, Memento Mori. You need a close. That's my closing statement. What's your closing statement? A word of wisdom for the people.
I think part of this is just, this idea of us doing a podcast in my front room, in my pajamas. It's just that I enjoy it.
They don't need to know that.
Yeah. Well, you do now.
He's actually dressed in a Armani suit. We're very professional.
I think it's just, regardless of those people listening, obviously that's a bonus, and I think the majority of people listening are people who know us already.
Yeah, at least for now, yeah.
But I think the whole point of this is just that we're just doing it because we enjoy it. And I think you definitely will learn out of, or we will definitely learn out of doing it. Like, learning what works and what doesn't work. I feel like kind of like a child when they pretend to do their own little TV show or whatever. We're going to now we'll do a podcast. Then you can be a presenter. Then I'll do the.
That is shockingly accurate. Shockingly accurate.
But I'm do that.
Filled with imposter syndrome. Filled with it. It's how we live, man.
I think that's I definitely encourage people to do that. I've had people say that, I would love to do a YouTube channel. And I just say, well, just do it. Yeah, I mean, I think once you get past a certain age, there's a certain insecurity that sort of leaves. I think when you're at school, it's very easy because you have a lot of
really want to fit in
peers, and if you do stuff like that, unless it's like you're going to go viral with it, it's very easy for people to go, oh, look at your video with 5 views on it. Yeah. It's crap. But now I'll just, if it's something genuine and something I believe in, then I guess
it's very true. Like up until this year was maybe a bit earlier than that. But I never used to share my YouTube videos on Facebook. Never, ever. When all throughout high school and sixth form, because I was so conscious of them. But this, even before I didn't even interview you. I put it up, and I don't know. Just I care less now. I still care a lot. I'm still concerned about sharing people, but I'm getting over it. Over it.
That's good. That's the way to be.
In closing, memento mori, and just do it.
Yeah. This is not sponsored
by Nike.